TCP Nation, we got Darin Deaton. I don't know why I pointed at you. Handshake.
How's it going?
He put his cowboy hat and tennis shoes on for this.
Hey, man. I didn't even have my cowboy hat on first. Yeah. So I figured, hey, it's the cowboy's perspective, so you got to have a cowboy hat on.
Yeah, that's right.
But
you do raise beef and horses, and you also run some physical therapy offices and have built some big businesses, exited those businesses. So I think that's the fun stuff we'll get to and get to talk about. Also, just whatever may come up. I like just let's have a conversation, maybe pretend the mic's not there. We're just recording that in case we say something smart.
Sure.
And it might be questionable.
Yeah, we won't have to worry about that between you and me.
We got the videos on for YouTube, so hi everybody out there. I have this tendency, or I kind of want to do this research and tell everybody all of the things that makes you an expert, or what's the word I'm searching for? You're just you have credibility in the things you're going to say. But the luxury of today's world is Google, ChatGPT, all these different options. So as simple as I can put it, Google Darin Deaton, DPT Physical Therapy, Deaton Ranch, these things, you're going to learn a lot. From outside of that, we're going to just take off running, talking, having a conversation. I thought one of the first things I'd ask is, did you watch wrestling like the WWE?
Sure.
So have you ever heard of DDP?
No.
Diamond Dallas Page?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
So that's what I think of when I hear DTP. Okay. I think of like he had this move as like the diamond cutter or something like that.
Well, hey, if it'll bring patients in the door, then we might do that.
Yeah, that's right. If y'all would go do some backyard wrestling, you can come see us at the physical
You're
therapy.
probably going to need to see me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So how did your journey begin into like physical therapy? Were you an athlete? What got you into that? Or was that the first thing you did? Did you do something else prior to this? It's kind of how I know you.
Sure. No, I was graduated high school, got ready to go to college, started at University of North Texas. I was a pre-medical major. I was going to go to medical school, orthopedics. And about halfway through my college, about a year into my college career, I met my wife now. And I met her at a summer class at a junior college. I was getting some credits built. And I met her, and we started dating and got serious and dated for 3 or 4 years and got married.
Yeah.
But during that time, I was getting ready. I was a biology major, so I was getting ready to take the MCAT, which is a medical college acceptance test, basically. Everybody takes that, and your score kind of determines how medical schools look at you, or it did back then. Now, you got to remember, that's been 40 years ago, so things have really changed. But when I say that, it makes me feel like I'm really old, and I am.
It's true.
But it is, yeah.
If you have the pleasure or the luck or the great grace of God to live,
right,
you're going to eventually get older. It's inevitable.
You bet.
Then your experiences just come along with that. So
sure.
And if we start diving into all the things that have changed, I mean,
oh my gosh,
it would be forever. We could talk about no cell phones.
What for sure. Yeah, you and I. Yeah, I didn't grow up with cell phones and stuff like that. But so basically, I had known a physical therapist who had been very successful here in Texas. He was one of the first PTs to actually own a private practice out of a hospital setting. And this would have been in the 1980s, mid-80s. He was in practice before that, probably late 1970s. He started practice, maybe even before that. But he was a hospital PT, and then he started his own deal. And I was kind of starting to figure out, I had shadowed with an orthopedist too, And I looked at the orthopedic surgeon's lifestyle, and I realized, okay, this is a guy that's never at home for birthday parties. Back then, a doctor had to take call. You worked in the ER a lot, just kind of get your presence known in a community. And so you took call all the time. You missed your kids' functions. You had to sacrifice a lot to be a doctor back then. And so I started looking at alternate, career paths, and I called up this guy and I said, "Hey, can I observe with you for a day or so?" And he said, "Sure." And so I went over to his practice and I watched him that day, and he drove an old red dually pickup. His name was Mike Jansen. He was one of my mentors, and great godly man, great Christian man, just very well thought of. And so I traveled with him that day, and I started looking at his lifestyle. I was like, okay, this guy kind of acts like a doctor. He owned 2 or 3 clinics. He's a business owner. He kind of calls his own shots, and he gets to treat patients and provide care for people. I think this might be something I'd like to do. And he's at home at birthday parties. Yeah. And stuff like that. And so it just kind of, for Michelle and I, we were just dating at the time, but we kind of knew what our life goals were in regards to our family structure, and we based that on God's laws and what we wanted for her role and my role, and we just kind of looked at that. And I told her, I said, "Honey, I don't think I could make the kind of living that I want to make as a staff PT working for someone else, but I said, I think if I do this and I build a business that we own, so I'm a business owner and a PT, I said, I think I can make this work." And I went to physical therapy school. And that year, I think I was in my second or third year of college, so I had to make a real quick shift. Luckily, I had all the science hours to start with. Yeah. So I made that shift, and I went to TWU's dean of the physical therapy school, and I said, "What do I have to do to get into PT school?" She said, "Well, our program requires a weed out course." They didn't call it a weed out course, but a prereq course, and it was an anatomy course. It was a human anatomy cadaver dissection course. And so I said, "Okay, when do I need to enroll for that?" She said, "Yesterday." And I said, "Okay." So I immediately enrolled in that class, enrolled in classes there, moved from UNT to TWU, took the class, tried to become that professor's best friend because he was also on the admissions board, and got into physical therapy school at that spring after the end of that fall-winter semester, and went to PT school. So I did my undergrad, my graduate training there, and that was 89 and 90. And then I eventually got my doctorate in physical therapy. Later in the physical therapy world, the doctorate kind of became the entry-level degree. So I wanted to step my education up to that level. Yeah. So I went back and got my doctorate degree while running a group of clinics and a group of gyms and raising 3 girls. And so when young PTs or other people tell me I just don't have enough time for that, I'm like, no, you just choose not to have enough time.
I mean, that's kind of a reality in everything. Yeah.
So, I mean, you want a job done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
Give it to an already busy person, because there's a reason they're busy. And so I did that and went to PT school. And
now, did you say TWU?
Yes.
So Texas Women's University?
That's right.
So it's not for women only?
No, not that school.
I had that misinterpretation.
Oh, sure.
Our girls go to TW for team camp basketball camp.
Sure.
I thought it was like a women's only university. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Sure.
Because maybe somebody else is sitting out there ignorant like I was, thinking, so cool.
Yeah. Their program actually, at that time, there were a handful of physical therapy programs in the state. And most of those programs were going from what we call the bachelor's degree to the master's degree. So they were all converting up. The entry level of PT, like in the 80s, was the bachelor's degree. And then in the early 90s, it immediately jumped to the master's degree. And now we no longer have any master's programs. It's an entry-level doctorate degree only. And so over the course of 36 years, the profession has basically gone from baccalaureate to master's to the doctorate level degree. TWU was the top school in the state at the time and like third in the country. And it was in Denton, and I was already in Denton. So I looked up PT schools, and there wasn't the internet. back then. What people don't realize is that
you look in the yellow pages.
And I asked around at universities and asked people, and I asked Mike if he knew of some programs, Mike Jansen, but I tell someone the other day, and they look at me like I'm from Mars. I said, I saw the internet the first time in a library at TWU trying to research medical articles. Mm-hmm. And the librarian came up to me, and I told her what I was looking for, and she said, well, let's go on the World Wide Web. And I went, what's the World Wide Web? And she said, well, it's the internet. And I went, what's that? And she goes, come here, I'll show you. And she went on to this like TS whatever it was, dot matrix screen.
It's also got this dial-up.
Looked exactly dial-up internet and looked up and found these articles in some library somewhere else. And she said, I can print these from here. And I was like, but it's in that other library. And she said, yeah, I know, but we can print these here. Mm-hmm. And that kind of opened my eyes to what was going to happen in the future. And then, we have what we have today.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember being perplexed by email. Like,
email?
What? Like, at what? AOL? What? I was just like, but now I don't know how.
I don't know if we could operate with
it. That's right.
Well, and that's kind of like I told someone the other day. They were like, man, we have Facebook page for our business, for our physical therapy group. We have a Facebook page personally. You have a Facebook page for your practice for our beef business and the ranch. And we've got a Instagram page. I don't do as much stuff over there, but you got all these different things. And I said, I'd just as soon get rid of that thing. Mine's over there. I'd just as soon get rid of that thing. But the problem is no one else will.
Yeah.
So the technology is a blessing and a curse in some ways. But we couldn't operate our practice group today without going back to what we did before. I mean, my first physical therapy practice. Well, I'll let you get into that if you want to. So that's why I went to PT school and graduated, went to work for a group for about 9 months. I graduated with my bachelor's, got my temporary license, got my state board exam taken, and then I automatically rolled into a graduate program, a master's program, because they were going to use some of our undergraduate hours and push them up into the next degree. So I was going to get the next level degree with less time.
Yeah.
And so it was going to be a 12-month long program. And as long as I went to school full time, I would be able to get my graduate degree and graduate with my master's. So at the time I was looking at that and saying, okay, this is where the next step in physical therapy is. I don't want to be behind.
Yeah.
So I stayed, but I also worked full time as a PT while going to graduate school. And, what's funny about that is that, now I look back and I say to myself, holy cow, again, we talk about that idea about people saying, they don't have enough time or they don't have enough energy to do things. I was telling one of our therapists today that I just had lunch with, I said, I drove from Fort Worth from Bedford to Fort Worth to treat patients, to Dallas to take a class, to Denton to take a class, and back to Bedford every single day for a year just to get that program done.
Yeah.
And get that extra degree. But I worked for them for 9 months. At the end of 9 months, I had a colleague that I went to school with. He graduated the year before me, and he approached me about opening a business, a practice together, and we opened a practice in Irving, Texas. I was a partner there for a length of time. And then
had you ever ran a business before? No. So talk about that a little bit. So y'all decide to open a practice. What stuff did you not know?
Well,
you knew how to do PT.
Now I look back and I realize I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Now I was fortunate. His dad had clinics in Fort Worth. So we were relying on some of that knowledge, and he had quite a bit of knowledge. Even as a new graduate, he was a little bit older and had some business savvy knowledge. So I basically ran the practice, was a minority partner, and learned.
Yeah.
I learned about the business side of it. And I was there for 5 years. No, less than that. I was there for 3 years, and it didn't work out. So I left, and I went to work for a hospital setting for another year, and during that time formulated my own private practice, built my own new clinic.
Yeah.
But I remember my wife and I remember Michelle and I going to get I didn't have any money. I think we had about $2,000 in our savings account back then. Michelle was a teacher. Yeah. She was teaching school, and I was treating patients, and I told her I want to open my own practice now. It's time. And we were like, but we don't have any money. So I went to the bank. My father-in-law knew the bank president pretty well. And he said, I'll get you the meeting, but it's on you after that. So I went to the bank and sat down with the bank president. And he said, we'll loan you I wanted $200,000.
Yeah.
He said, we'll loan you $200,000 if you can come up with 60. And I was like, okay.
I've got two.
I was like, well, I'm really not borrowing 200,000 then. I'm really only borrowing 140, right? And he said, well, that's kind of how the SBA works. You need to have $60,000 in capital to get this loan. And I was like, okay. And so we didn't have it, but I really believe this was kind of God's intervention in our lives. My mother-in-law worked for an attorney group. And that attorney that she worked for, she was in the front office, really took a liking to me. And when he found out that I was looking to open my own business, he reached out to me and he said, I have an older couple that would like to invest some funds in a small business, man or woman. And I would like for them to meet you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So we met at a McDonald's in Grapevine, Texas. I was on my best dress. I had a shirt and tie and a sport coat on. Here I am. I'm 24 years old, maybe, just out of school. 25 maybe years old, 25 or 26 years old. It's been a long time. But I sat there and gave him my business plan, which I learned from John, the attorney. He was the one that kind of helped me put my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year business plan together, my performer together.
I mean, that was one of my questions. Like, how did you
John showed me.
That's so valuable. I mean, that's like a yeehaw.
Oh, yeah.
Darin is now sharing that with me. Like, I mean, they're very similar thing. Like, I'm thinking about putting up this gym.
Yep.
And you're kind of like, well, what's the plan? What are you going to do in years 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, you're kind of like, I don't know. I just want to put a gym up. I'm like, well, you can do that, and I can tell you how to be very unsuccessful at it.
Yeah, that was so good. I mean, I know there's so much in that one little story.
Sure.
Like, we're not best friends. We don't hang out, but I knew you. You knew me, and I knew you had been in this space, and I was thinking about getting in the space. So what did I do? I asked.
Sure.
I want to encourage everybody. If you know me and you're interested in things I've done, you should ask. Because Darin, just free of charge, hey, I don't think that's a great idea. I didn't want to hear that. Honestly, I did not want to hear that.
Sure.
But it was good for me to hear it. So,
well, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons why we start businesses and do things. And I think, if you're philanthropic and you have the ability to do things like that, then really dollars and cents really don't matter. And there are times in our lives where hopefully we get to do some of those things. We get to give of our time or money, and we really don't look at the return on investment from a financial standpoint. Maybe there's a larger return on investment that is a bigger picture, and so especially in small communities like where our businesses serve, yours and mine, and so But yeah, I had no idea. And that couple, their names, I'll say I don't even know if they're still alive today, but their names were Linda and Jeffrey Jackson. She looked at me. She was kind of the driver across the table, and I could tell. And she looked at me and she said, I believe in you. And she took her checkbook out and she wrote a $60,000 check to me. And John took the check into escrow, took it in, put it in a safe account. And then I was able to go to the bank and go to that banker and say, I have $60,000 in capital for the down payment on this loan. Went and got a loan. Michelle and I signed a loan. Like I think we were 26 maybe. And I can remember the pucker factor that day because that was a lot of money. I came from a blue collar family. My parents didn't pay a lick of any of my college. I paid all my own college. I worked through school. And so to take that amount of money out, it was kind of like, okay, this is like legit.
Did you ever
got to be
think
successful?
well, if I can't pay it back, big deal.
Oh, no. I mean, I was like, if this doesn't work, Michelle, we're broke for a long time.
Yeah.
Knowing what a therapist,
that's a cowboy perspective to me. It's like,
sure.
I feel I've experienced people borrowing things and, well, if I can't make the payment, they just come get it. I never felt that way. I never was, it was just like not a piece of my
probably your DNA
upbringing
your
or
integrity.
my DNA or upbringing or just the people I was around. It was like, if you owe somebody money,
oh yeah,
you pay them back before you eat. Like
you're slave to the lender. You're the borrower.
You want to get that off of your back as fast as possible.
Well, I can. I was kind of taught the same way you were, and I wasn't taught that by my elders and taught that by men and women mentors in my life, that when you give your word, back then you shook hands a whole lot and didn't have a piece of paper. And I know I say back then, it's not that long ago, but 30, 40 years ago, things were different in our culture. It was, you made mistakes. People found out about it pretty easily in small communities, and then no one wanted to do business with you. So, I knew that if we didn't make it, I would make right on it long term.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I tell people all the time, I am very proud of one thing, that I have never defaulted on a note, never not made a loan payment, never not made a lease payment. I have always done what I said I would do, even through bad times.
Yeah.
Even through hard times. And so I knew if it didn't work, it was going to be on me. It wasn't going to be on her. It was going to be on me, even though her name was on the note too.
Yeah, that's a partnership, isn't it? Like she's got a lot of faith in you, a lot of belief in you.
For sure.
I was watching this, I get caught in the old social media doom scroll sometimes, but once in a while I'll catch something that's really, I think, valuable.
Right.
Well, this guy was talking, it was just a guy talking to his wife about, hey, I think I may need some help on the mortgage. I'm not sure. And she said, well, I never even think about that. That's your problem.
Yeah,
it's like, that's kind of how the structure was at one time.
Sure. No, she kind of knew. I don't think she knew. I think she just, one of the things that's allowed me to have any small level success at all has been that I always felt like she had my back. She's never once doubted me.
Yeah.
Even if she may have doubted me, she never said that she doubted me. And that gave me a significant amount of confidence to know that I had her backing me all along. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of drove me to wanting to do right, to do better, to build something. And I can, that little business we opened up in 1993, we had that clinic. And in 1995, let me make sure I got 1998, I had a colleague of mine call me and he said, hey, would you be interested in selling your clinic? And I said, no, it's only 5 years old. Yeah. And he's like, is it profitable? I said, yeah, we're profitable. We do real well. And he's like, I think our little private company might be interested in buying it. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to buy it. We're going to add it to our group. And then we're going to go to a bigger group. And then you'll be a stakeholder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, well, I'd never sold a business. Yeah. I barely built a business, Yeah. And I didn't know what a cash, if you told me to tell me, if you said, Darin, tell me your numbers on your business on the accrual side, the cash flow side, and show me your balance sheet, I would have said, what?
Right.
That wasn't in my radar screen. I knew this. If I made more money in the month than it cost me to make it, that there would be something left over.
Yeah.
And that's how I operated for 5 years of my business life. And still today, I think cash flow is king. That's kind of how I operate in a lot of ways. Now, I know a little bit more today than I did then, but that doesn't necessarily change my operating model that much.
Well, it doesn't change kind of the basic truth.
Yeah.
Like knowing those things opens a certain door to conversation with exits and bankers and these kind of things.
Yep.
But it doesn't change the fact that if that bank account is growing, you're doing something right.
Right.
Right. If it's not, if you're looking like, hey, we can't, we're not going to make
if there's more month than there is money, we got a problem. And that's kind of, so long story made short, we sold that business in 1998. And it was a 7-figure sale. I had never seen that much money in my life. And I had already paid the Jacksons back their original $60,000. I paid him back another $40,000 because we had another minority partner that we bought out along the way because he didn't self-perform. He didn't perform. So we bought him out. So they had made that $100,000. Then I think I'd paid him another $100,000. And when the deal was done, their portion of the sale was over $400,000. And I looked at that and I went, so that's what business really is.
Yeah.
I was like,
that was a smart investment they made.
Well, yeah.
What work did they have to do? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And Linda, but they gave me a lot of support, and they never micromanaged. They never micromanaged me, and they took a risk. But I tell you, Linda.
So in that structure, they then took part ownership.
Yes. Yeah. They weren't a lender. They were a principal partner. They were an owner, a partner
like an
in the
angel
business.
Investor.
Yes,
you could almost
exactly.
say that.
Exactly. And so, but I remember after we did that, and I gave them their check. Linda was like, "Okay, when can we do something like this again?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. What are you doing now?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, but that kind of opened my eyes, and it was a small sale, but that kind of opened my eyes to the idea that, okay, this is possible. Mm-hmm. That I could build something that would have value and worth in the future, and I could not only live paycheck to paycheck and live for, I could build something that in future time that equity could come back to me in some form of payment, whether it be ownership in an asset or the sale of an asset, whatever else you could use it for. Yeah. And so I went to work for that company for 5 years. And after 5 years, I was under a management contract. I realized I don't want to work in corporate healthcare anymore. So I started a group in Fort Worth that I had for 20 plus years. I had 7 locations in the Fort Worth market, all like Northeast Tarrant County area. Yeah. And I sold that in 2024. And before I sold that, we had started DPT, which is the physical therapy business where you and I met.
Right.
This is my landlord.
Oh, yeah.
So, by the way, this is my landlord.
I love, it was fun working with you.
Sure.
Because
it was easy.
I'm new to the commercial real estate space.
Sure.
I don't really know. You've been there a while. You've seen a lot of different things. So you kind of walked me through even how to lease you this property. So it was like really educational for me, enjoyable. We've had conversations about faith, kids. Yep. I mean, over this time.
Mm-hmm. Cows.
Yeah, cows.
Important stuff.
Shout out to Deaton Ranch Beef, though. Yeah, I noticed on social you're pre-selling some of your beef right now. So if you want to know where your beef came from, go get some from Darin because it's getting raised right on his ranch. And food. So how about food in the space you're in?
Okay.
What kind of role does food play in your health or your physical fitness and that kind of thing?
So let me kind of tell you how all that stuff came about because it's kind of interesting stories. So my life over the last 35 to 40 years has been built off of the health and fitness industry mostly. My wife and I met at a junior college, in the hallway of a junior college. We had an English class together, but then we met further because I was a personal trainer in a health club, and she worked in the snack bar there. Yeah. And so we got to know each other there, and that's when we started dating. And
isn't it fun to remember like just the pitter patter of your heart?
Oh yeah,
when you and you're just really attracted to somebody, falling in love with somebody. It's nervous, it's fun, it's exciting. I mean, it still is today, but it's a different kind of thing. After you built a life together, raised a family together, built business, you've been in the mud and and all those things. I'm talking about me and my wife too, It's like, but I think about my daughters and I'm like kind of excited for them to experience that,
yours are I can't remember.
15, 14,
okay.
9, you know, they're coming
mine are like
into
33, 30, and 27.
Yeah, right.
So
Well,
when you need some help, let me know I'll tell you what not to do.
yeah. You know, I think God sets it up in a way where
yeah.
there's just no playbook.
Yep.
Like you just have to kind of feel around in the dark, trust in Him. We had a little basketball. I'm like the number one fan.
Oh,
of
I know.
Comanche Indians.
I know. I know.
Maidens.
I've seen your stuff.
So we had a little team dinner at our house, and they did a Bible study, and it was really cool. And it was just making me think, man, I feel blessed that my daughters are in this group of kids and this kind of coaching staff and this community.
Sure.
Because it could be really different anywhere else.
Oh, sure.
Else.
Yeah. Well, and I think that small town environment lends some things to raising kids that you don't necessarily get in a suburban or metropolitan or urban market. We raised our kids in the Fort Worth market, mostly suburban lifestyle, but we always had a ranch outside of town.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how things led us into the ranching life. My family on my mother's side, my grandparents were in the farm and ranch business. We had a family ranch in Uvalde County for years. And I spent a lot of time in Uvalde with my grandparents and my extended relatives. And I always wanted to go back to that lifestyle, but my parents lived in the city. They lived in Fort Worth, the Mid-Cities area, and so that's where I was raised. And then I ended up finishing my high school at Northwest High School, and at the time, that was a little bitty high school. That was we had 100. Well, I say little. It's little in regards to the Metroplex. It was 100. We had 102 in our graduating class, which is little today.
Oh yeah.
That same district has 4 high schools that graduate 1,000 or more, right?
Yeah.
So, but I kind of saw that lifestyle again there because a lot of my classmates, their parents had ranch land or had cows or they showed horses or 4-H or whatever they were doing, and I just thought to myself, when we have enough money, I want to go buy a place. So we had a place in Wise County for about 15 years, and my wife's family moved to the Granbury area, and I got ready to build a little ranch house on the ranch. And I was like, hey, if I build a ranch house, will you come out to the ranch more often? She's like, no, I think I'll go visit my parents. I was like, well, that's really not the plan here. The plan is for us to be able to enjoy this together. And so her parents were kind of getting up in years, and I was like, okay, so what if I sell the Wise County place and find a place closer to your parents? And she was like, that might work.
Yeah.
So we found this place in Erath County and bought it about 6 or 7 years ago. And I was still working in Fort Worth, and I did not have the DPT group that you and I are associated with now. I still had my group in Fort Worth, and I started traveling back and forth. I was going out to the ranch 2, 3, sometimes 4 days a week. I'd go out. I'd wake up really early. I'd go back into town, see patients, come back out. For long, I was out here as much as I was in town. And when the housing market got really, really good about 4 or 5 years ago, I looked at my wife and I said, I think it's time we make a move. And she was like, oh, really wasn't the plan. I thought we were going to do it a little later in life. And I was like, no, I think the plan's now.
Yeah.
And, my background and career is that we had built 6 locations in Fort Worth of physical therapy businesses. And I also owned 3 gyms. Besides that, for over 10 years, I owned 3 gyms. And then I owned another little barbell gym, kind of a small personal training studio for another 7 years. So health and fitness was kind of our life space. Yeah. It was a space I lived in. I had a podcast for several years that involved health and fitness over the age of 40. And it was just kind of it's what I had an interest in, and it went along with my physical therapy practice life. And so when we got ready to raise a cow herd, I wanted to raise a product that was, number one, all natural, not necessarily organic, but all natural, built off of a regenerative, sustainable ranching model. I wanted a product that was highly nutritious as a protein source for people. And I also wanted to reconnect people back to agriculture. Yeah. I wanted families that were going to buy from us to be able to come out to the ranch, ride in the buggy, see how we raise our herd, see how we wean calves, see kind of our feed process, all those things. Mm-hmm. And so we breed Akushi red Wagyu over the top of basically Angus commercial cows.
Yeah.
And so we get that high oleic acid content and that high, good saturated fat, that's cholesterol, basically cholesterol net negative even, and just a good beef product for people to put on their plate and I know my rancher kind of thing. And I think that COVID really helped to kind of spur that on. And to kind of grow a lot of these smaller ranches to be able to have a source for people to buy, and people got more particular about where their food came from. I still think the masses pretty much get their food wherever they can get it.
They just think it comes from the grocery store.
Right, yeah.
Which, I say that with this bit of a negative tone. It shouldn't be. I don't intend it to be, or I guess I'm jaded in a way to think, like I'm better or something, because I know it's not that. It's just a fact.
Sure.
Like, if you ask me about skateboarding, I'm an idiot. Right, I don't know. Right. I'm not I never was part of that. So I don't want to treat people that way or turn them off. I encourage them to get educated, but your experience is your experience.
Sure.
I eat meat. I know intimately where it comes from,
right?
How you get it. It's not pretty. Death is not pretty. But there's life in death, and how the circle of life, works. And it's been kind of fun teaching my girls those things, and they're kind of grossed out at times, but then like they get over it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's just normal. Like, liver's not the most crazy thing to eat. It can be good, and it's also super nutritious. And when you were growing up and what you had to eat was this thing you had to grow yourself, there was no grocery store to go to.
Right.
You ate everything you could in that, animal. And so I grew up liver and onions, man. I still think, man, that sounds good.
Well, and I think that you kind of hit it on the head. I think this is an obvious thing, and you could hear this a million times on the internet or somewhere else. So I'm not saying anything that everybody probably doesn't already know, but just to bring its awareness. We moved from a farming, ranching type of communities, supporting small, integral parts of communities, to where you probably, like, let's say 100 years ago, most of your food came from probably within 50 to 100 miles.
Yeah.
There were some specialty foods that probably got shipped in, but most of it came from right there. And seasonally, if there were certain fruits that weren't in season in your part of the world at that time, you just didn't eat them, or you ate them very seldomly, if they came from another part of the world, just because of shipping and the nature of how long it took to get things.
I still laugh. I say laugh. It occurs to me, like, being in the food business, going to grocery stores all the time. Have you had a Honeycrisp apple? Are you familiar with Honeycrisp apple?
Sure.
How are those always available at the grocery store?
Yeah, because they're growing them somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, that's right. They are
not here, and they get here really fast.
Yes, and now sometimes of the year they're better. They're bigger. They're prettier. Well, that's when they're really supposed to be around. All the other times when they're smaller and then bag and something, they're coming from some other part of the world.
You're right.
But I know that. I'm not sure my kids know that. I'm not sure 90% of the people that eat a Honeycrisp apple understand those truths.
Sure.
I feel like the ones that you get in the season are better. They're better for you. They're probably more nutritious, all those things.
Sure.
I don't have the study to back that up, but it's an example.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of buying local, staying local as much as possible. But I also recognize too that, and basically kind of the decentralization of our food industries. We're a lot better off as meat producers, especially on the production side, if those meat products come from a lot of small producers all over the place versus maybe 3 or 4 main companies.
Yeah.
We're just a lot better off in regards to diseases, in regards to cleanliness, in regards to access to food and the stability of our food networks.
Well, I mean, I also think about, it's like just big corporations, even the decision makers now are kind of protected or insulated or separate from some of the stuff. Like a small farmer, he's making decisions that affect his pocketbook.
Sure.
Like in corporations, I mean, I think there's good things about corporations. I've got good friends that work in big corporations. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but it's inevitable. They have to make decisions that aren't necessarily affecting their pocket or affecting them in a way that would make them say, no, we're not cutting that cost. We're going to make sure this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the one of the things I think about, now I had this conversation with the guy the other day, and I was having lunch or something with him, and he said, well, why don't you sell your beef to restaurants? I said, first of all, I'm too small of a producer to consistently source a restaurant. I said, but do you realize how much beef Americans eat? I said, you take the average barbecue place. I said, the average barbecue place might go through 100 briskets a week. That's 50 head of cattle.
Yeah.
The average producer in this country has less than 50 head of cattle.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, I don't know what the number is, but it's pretty close to that. Yeah, and I was saying that's a week.
Yeah.
So if you were sourcing briskets as a producer to the restaurant industry, you know, you'd have to have a pretty big herd to source. Now, primal cuts, select cuts, ground beef, it's a little bit different because we got greater volume there. You know, you could source some of those things as a producer, and many of us do. But when you're talking about like those types of things, I told him, I said, there is a need for larger producers and larger corporate entities being able. We're feeding the masses today. And he was like, yeah, but if we had all these small farms, I said, but we got to get there.
Yeah.
If we shut those big guys down today and tried to make up for the difference, there's not enough food production in the marketplace right now. There's a lot of the small producers are leaving every single month, every single year. So we'd have to rebuild that herd. And as you know, we have a really small cow herd right now.
And it's really hard. I mean, it's hard to justify growing your herd right now. It's just expensive. And then if you've been in the cattle business long enough, you know, like it's up and down.
Well, this is the
one. You don't
want
to buy in at the top.
It pencils out right now if you had a herd already.
Right. Yes.
You know, I made the really smart decision during the drought of buying a bunch of heifers, which was not smart back then. I didn't make a good decision.
Accidentally made a good decision.
Yeah, I did. I accidentally made a good decision. So I bought, you know, I was buying heifers out of Black Angus, you know, registered cows for $800 a pop, you know, 6 weight, $800, you know, $700. Mm-hmm. Well, now you can't touch a heifer for less than $2,500 to $3,000.
That's right.
So input cost, I mean, it all balances out, right? Input cost versus output cost. And I'm just learning in that space, and I'm a super small producer, but we sell half of our herd. We sell all of our heifers as replacements, mostly.
That's probably good, because I bet people are looking for that Achi beef quality to put into their
We hope they do.
herds.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I got into the Wagyu business for a little while. Forget what year. You're way better at remembering years. I'm sitting over here thinking, I hope I don't have to remember a year, because it's just my life. You know, it's all back there somewhere. I can't tell you exactly.
Yeah, sometime. Yeah.
Well, I just thought, so I was in this, you know, better for you kind of meat CPG company selling bacon and just working with Whole Foods and these kind of places. And I just got to thinking, and beef was really kind of in the tank at the time. So quality seemed like, okay, cool, this is going to be a great deal. Yeah,
premium product, branded premium programs.
Yep. So on the opposite side, I accidentally made a terrible decision. So I went to Wagyu. I started putting Wagyu bulls. I bought like these 3/8 or 5/8 Wagyu heifers. So I'm raising what I think I'm going to send to the feedlot, put on the grid, sell on the grid, da-da-da-da. All of a sudden, the beef market took off. Like, pounds of beef were worth something again. And I'm sitting here with these kind of ugly cattle, honestly, that aren't very big. And I'm just like, dang. So then I just went back full, like, I'm just going for pounds again.
Sure.
With quality in mind. But so that was my experience. All along, there's this company called Heart Brand Beef that was big in Akiushi.
Mm-hmm.
I thought those were better looking cattle than what the Wagyu.
Looked like a red Angus,
into.
just leggier.
Yeah.
But like a red Angus.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, that's we're kind of off topic a little bit, but I dabbled. I just didn't stay hooked. Yeah.
I've learned so much from people in the industry and other podcasts and I'm a member of the Texas Southwest Cattle Raisers Association, just listening to their webinars and going to things and then talking to old cowmen. And because there's a difference between a cowboy and a cowman for sure. And talking to old cowmen and then talking to cowboys and learning from guys in Erath County and stuff and just what works or what doesn't work. But I think as a small producer, like the other day as a small producer, I had to gather up all my cows and vaccinate and process them all myself and sort off weanlings and
your
and
daughters don't
stuff.
Come help your son-in-laws or grandkids.
No, unfortunately one of them's in Colorado, one of them's in Northeast Arkansas, and one of them's in Fort Worth. And so I think I'm probably more efficient on my own.
Yeah. You ever see that meme where it's like, you want to hear Dad's bad language, go work cattle.
Yeah. I think I'm more efficient on my own, and I like to use dogs too. So I run some border collies that help me move cattle and sort them off and do some things like that, and so that helps. But all of that stuff put together, I think when you think about health and fitness, physical therapy is for treating a condition or a disorder or a diagnosis after there's a problem, generally speaking. Sometimes we do some preventative stuff too, but most of the stuff that comes in our clinic, 9/10 of it is there's a problem, and so we're treating a problem. The gym industry obviously is kind of that preventative, health and fitness mode. So for a true healthy body, I mean, we've got those several components, and we've got exercise is part of it. Diet and nutrition is part of it. Sleep, proper hydration is part of it. Rest is part of it. And stress management is part of it. And the biggest part that none of us control is genetics.
Yeah.
And kind of how your body's going to roll and how you're, I always tell people this. It's just like an animal. You might have an animal with an amazing phenotype. I mean, they genetically have an amazing phenotype. But if that animal is not taken care of, not given the right nutrition, not given the right training, let's say it's a cow horse, not given the right training, put in the wrong hands, that animal will never reach its maximum genetic potential. I call it the MGP, the maximum genetic potential. So as humans, we have this genetic phenotype that we're given from our parentage, just like an animal does. Yeah. And then it's on us to live in a way to maximize the good genes in our body and minimize the bad genes in our body. And so to be able to maximize our performance as a human, and who doesn't need that wants to be active? I mean, I
heard even for this, one of the leading indicators for all cause mortality is muscle mass. So I don't have a lot of muscle. That's not like a piece of my genetics. Like I don't have a lot of muscle. So I don't have much to lose. So I need to keep it up, and I don't do a great job of that, but I need to do a good job of it. I think if you're listening, you need to do a good job of it if you want to live longer.
What percentage of your audience do you think are Western lifestyle industry people, like actual cowboys? What percentage of your audience do you think are cowboys, cowmen? A large percentage?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look at the title of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so think about it this way. A lot of these guys, they kind of shirk off exercise and proper diet and all that stuff because they just got grit. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got cowboy grit or cowman grit or rancher grit, farmer grit.
Also, like sometimes there's this super great value in working outside, being in the sun, doing manual labor. It's like you get up against some of these old cowboys.
Yeah, they'll
They'll just work you in the dirt because they're in
It's
shape.
a mental mindset.
Yeah, that too.
It's a mental mind. Well, and they also have conditioned their bodies to be able to do that. But I always tell guys, I tell them all the time, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Living a reasonably healthy life, having a good diet, a good quality diet, having some type of exercise routine or regimen that you do on a regular basis that involves the development and maintenance of muscle mass. People don't realize
good
this.
Protein.
Yes, yeah. Protein, beef, right?
Yeah, that's right. Beef
higher than riboflavin and everything else, all the good nutrients. But as males and females over the age of 40 is kind of the I won't say it's the precipice, but it's kind of that turning point. We lose an average of 1 to 3% of our body's strength capacity and muscle mass every single year for each year thereafter. So you think about it this way. If you go from 40 to 60, that's 20 years. And if you lost only 1% of your muscle mass and strength, that's 20% right there. Yeah. What if you lost 2%? That's 40. That's why you take a guy that's 65 years old and he can barely bench press his weight.
Yeah.
And you take a guy that's 40 years old and he still might have a 315 or a 375 bench, or whatever, or a squat or a deadlift, whatever it is.
It's also why, like, there's some maturity I've come across. I'm not sure, maybe everybody does, maybe everybody doesn't, but I was competitive in the gym. Like, if there's anybody in there, I want to be able to hang with them. I just can't. I had to get over that because I'm injuring myself all the time trying this ridiculous thing that I'm going to hang with the 25-year-old police officer who is,
yeah.
Well, didn't you turn a backflip every year for some number? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I'll do it this year, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Someone asked me, when will you stop doing that? I'll be 59 this year in 3 months, basically. And someone asked me, when will you stop doing those? I said, when I can't. When I go to rip one off, and do a backflip, standing backflip, and I land on my knees or cut it short or something, and I consistently try it and I can't do it, I guess I'll say either I need to work harder or this is the year. But that's my way of basically kind of training myself to that I still can produce power and strength. And I train to do that. Yeah. I do work out. I do watch my diet. Now, I don't do that all the time, but I would say about 70 to 80% of the time I have a relatively good, clean diet with good sources of protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals. And then also training both in strength training and then some type of constantly varied training, which could be aerobic type training, running, jogging, or it might be like a high intensity quick workout. But I kind of built my career on those concepts.
Yeah.
A lot of people who know me in this space don't know that part of me. Right. But if you go back and you Google me, you'll see that's a part of who I was.
Yeah. Were you an athlete? I
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a gymnast growing up.
Okay. So I was about to say, I've never done a backflip ever on purpose.
No, that was kind of my jam.
Yeah.
I was a gymnast growing up, all the way through high school and early college. And I was small too. I was really small growing up. I grew almost 5 inches after my senior year in high school. In between that and my sophomore year of college, I grew almost 5 inches. And when we go, we've been to we had our 40th high school reunion recently. Yeah. And we went to that high school reunion and people are like, I recognize your face, but I don't recognize your body.
Yeah.
Because I was a much smaller guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of have kept some of those skills and also I'm also almost 60 years old. Mm-hmm. So I recognize now that time does take its toll on our bodies.
It's eventually going to get you.
It will catch up to all of us.
It's like we all going to die. I mean, it's just.
Well, that's real uplifting.
Well, but I kind of I like understanding that's true because it means.
Yes.
Did I do something today that was worth living for, because tomorrow may not come.
Agreed.
And to me, this is worth living for. I love this so much. I enjoy it. I hope somebody else listens to it someday. Jeff Foxworthy said a thing, which I want to encourage everybody, if you don't know God as your Lord and Savior or have some relationship there, go check it out. Like, get into the Bible, go to a church, do something. Foxworthy, or you know who that is.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
He might be a redneck, yeah. Anyways,
yep.
He just tells the story of going to this crazy goat roping and telling, and he's there telling jokes and mentions he thinks it's a good idea to, have a relationship with God and know who Jesus was. He leaves, and he's kind of, whoever went with him, they're just joking on the way back, like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Like, I can't believe we drove down here. And he's like, well, I just felt like God was calling me, Then some 20 years later, something bumps into this guy, and he's like, you remember this goat roping you did in some crazy place, Georgia? And he's like, I sure do. I talk about it all the time, like one of the craziest
shtick now.
I was saved on that day. And Foxworthy's like, now if God would have told me that, I would have drove down there, no problem. One person's worth it. But I had,
for sure.
And then his wife was like, well, that's really cool because God revealed that to you, and he didn't really have to. Like, you could have just gone the rest of your life not knowing what that was worth to somebody else. Anyway, all of that just kind of wraps up this we're all going to die statement into it is scary. It is a little bit of a downer, but it's going to happen. So what can I do to make sure when it does, I'm going to be okay with that?
Well, I told my parents are gone. Both my parents died young. My wife's parents are 85 and 83. And they're still very active and still relatively independent. But I told Michelle the other day, I said, we're almost 60 years old. I said, statistically, we've got a really good another 15 years, maybe 20. Mm-hmm. But I think the average lifespan for a male in the U.S., and this is an old statistic, used to be around 76. Yeah. I don't know what it is today, but when you think about that, that's about 16 years, 17 years. And so time goes by extremely fast. Yeah. So let's make it count. And I don't want to be that kind of person that I have no regrets over my past. Have I made mistakes? Yes. But in regards to not doing something that I want to do, that's not kind of in my DNA. I figure I might as well try it. And if I fail at it, to me, one of the stepping stones to success is failure. I always use this quote, you never know how sweet is until you've tasted something sour. How do you know how sweet something is to your palate and to your taste? Have some sour in your life, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, that's really sweet. Oh, that's really sour. Yeah. And so
I have gratitude for that.
Oh, for sure.
Because now I've been without, it's just, you were talking about having to pay for your own college and all that kind of stuff. I bet you feel like that's an advantage. Although at the time it was super hard and painful, and man, look at these kids that don't have to go work a job. They've got a, somebody supporting them in that way.
All the good stuff comes from the hard. I tell people all the time, name one thing in your life that you value significantly that was easy. You can't come up with anything. There's
every story you tell is the one about, geez, I remember this coach just kicked my tail. I remember I wanted to get the triple backflip, and I just failed and failed and failed. And then one day I got it. And man, it was so cool. And I had to turns out I had to go lift weights before I could get strong enough to even do that. It just peels this onion back on what it takes.
Well, and when you look at our culture today, if you look at kind of where our culture has gone, I always say we have a much weaker mental mindset in our culture today, especially in younger people. So if you're raising younger people, if you're raising kids right now and your kids are tough-minded, reasonably tough-minded, I mean, everybody has a lick, everybody gets down and everybody has a problem, and we all have successes and failures, but if they're taught that it's okay to fail and you've got to be able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, you can have some grit and move on. I mean, I felt so strongly about like people having grit. That one time in one of my clinics, when I had my clinics in Fort Worth, I used to always tell my patients, hey, this is going to take a little grit. Do you know what grit is? They'd be like, no. I was like, okay, let me tell you what grit is. It's kind of a cowboy thing. Or I said, but you're going to have to get tough-minded. You know, you're going to have to do something that you don't want to do today so that you can have something that you don't presently have in the future. And I said, so you're going to have some grit, and you're going to have to, you know, stand on your own hind 2 feet and make it work.
Yeah.
And so one of my employees one time, you know, the whole MAGA thing, Make America Great Again. Right. Well, I used to always say, Make America Grit Again. Yeah. And I made some T-shirts and I made a hat and everything. It was Make America Grit Again. And it had a bareback rider, and he was, you know, in that mid position like the Wyoming cowboy and horse and symbol for their state. And it said, Make America Grit Again. And one of my employees had T-shirts all made for us one day, and I came in. We all wore those T-shirts that day, and our patients were like, "Oh, great," you know. But that's so true. I mean, I think we there's a lot that this lifestyle of the agricultural lifestyle, the Western lifestyle, promotes that, and there's a lot of hardcore, old school values that have very new school application that we need to keep. Yeah. My girls used to say this kind of thing to me. They would say, Dad, you're so old school. I'd say, uh-huh. And they'd say, well, you know what I mean? You're kind of old fashioned. I say, yeah. And they'd say, well, you know what I mean? You're just kind of that, you know, you do old things and stuff. So I said, that's right. And I said, when you can actually come up with a reason why that's bad, then we'll have a conversation.
Yeah.
But they couldn't.
Right.
But I think we need more of what we see in the Western lifestyle culture and in the businesses within the Western lifestyle, in the ag and farm and ranching businesses. We need more of that in our culture, because I believe it's kind of the last bastion of American grit that needs to get more into our culture. And say what you want to about guys like Taylor Sheridan and other guys that are real vocal about some of those things, but it has shed a light on our industries, on these industries.
I mean, and when people, they come
sometimes
running.
Good and sometimes bad.
Yeah, but isn't everything that way?
Oh, for sure.
There's some good, there's some bad.
Sure.
I can remember clear as day training from my dad on that truth. Like,
you bet.
Son, you can pick the bad thing to focus on in every situation.
Right.
Or you can pick the good thing to focus on. And there is a good thing. You may have to look for it pretty hard, but it's there. And I just really think it's so good. Now, I don't succeed at that all the time. Sometimes I'm just whiny, you know, like we all get that way. So I'm not preaching like I'm some perfect specimen. I'm a flawed, sinful human, you know, that just loves talking to people, loves the idea of what I learned from this conversation being valuable to me, even in this moment or 10 years from now. Sure. You know, it's like, or even something I learned from Darin today that I may think, oh yeah, I want to tell my kids that, you know, or Stacy and I could take that and do something with it. So, man, like we just haven't covered everything I want to cover. And it's already been 1 hour and 3 minutes. Wow. Like it just goes by fast.
Yeah.
I think we align on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. I was thinking this might be one you disagree with me on. So I want to kick it out there. You're talking about grit, America. The last bastion of our grit is some of this rural farming stuff. I think there's a piece of something that's super like politically sensitive and that kind of thing that is good, but it is immigration. Mm-hmm. Like immigrants founded this country.
Oh, for sure.
And they have grit. They're risking death to get to America.
Sure.
Like I'm not risking death to do anything. That's grit.
For sure.
What is the conundrum within that man, we need that grit. We need those people. But we need to also have a way to
manage that.
Or avoid the gangs and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so growing up with property, basically 90 miles from the Texas-Mexico border, we had lots of folks that were in that community that were not legal citizens.
Yeah.
That culture back then was different, though. It was a different culture. You couldn't find a ranch, a good-sized ranch down in those parts where they didn't have some Mexican or Spanish help or Latin, help that weren't illegal. You couldn't find that, and some of that was just labor resources.
Sure.
And so, but I think what we find overwhelmingly about immigrants in this country is that immigrants who come here lawfully, they are more successful in business. They generally
they're taking all of our kids to the woodshed.
They are. They higher education,
they don't
higher academics.
They don't think they are entitled to anything.
Well,
they want to come get it.
They see what we have, and they recognize the opportunity that's here. And really, the only thing that's standing in your way is yourself. Everyone can have an excuse. And I always say, people say, well, you were lucky, you were fortunate. And I just say, luck is a lazy man's excuse for hard work well done. Yeah. And it really is. It's an easy way to rationalize why you haven't succeeded or you haven't tried to succeed. You see, what people see in you and I are mostly our successes.
Yeah.
What they don't get to see is that point A to point B where life was really hard and there were a lot of sacrifices and a lot of failures where we weren't successful. And I think that's the difference, is that I'm willing to go through that process. I believe that without that process, we can't have success in life. I believe that I always tell people, if you want time, you got to give time. If you want love, you got to give love. If you want to be, I remember the first time I went and helped out on a ranch, like on a ground crew or even getting to Cowboy. And I'm a grown man. Yeah. A fairly successful grown man in my career. Yeah. And I go to this ranch and I'm like a grunt. Yeah. And I have to step into that hierarchy and be that role. Yeah. And I can remember the first time I ever got asked, and I said this on another podcast once, the first time I ever got asked to go into a pen and rope calves and drag calves out. And it was like a big deal to me.
Right.
It was a big deal because that's that rancher saying, hey, I trust your skill. You're not going to hurt my animals. Yeah. And you've kind of earned this now. And so there's a lot of things like that, but you have to humble yourself. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to fail. And
did it feel like you were getting bullied a little? Like when you were there?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I almost think this probably makes people mad too. I think bullying's good. I don't want to see a kid commit suicide because they were bullied.
Sure.
But
no.
So maybe that's the wrong descriptor I'm using. But having to battle through hardship or being a grunt,
measuring up,
just something that says you don't get it. You can't, Darin. I don't care if you sold a business for $100 million today. You're flanking, and that's what you
unless
get to
you're
do.
the ranch owner, the ranch boss, and then you get to do what you want.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I remember when I had guys come help at our place for the first time several years ago, and I kind of used the same group of cowboys that have been a big help to me. Much younger men, but have taught me a whole lot. I call them if I've got a cow problem, I got a sickness issue or injured horse or something, and one day we're all standing there getting ready, and we've sorted, and we've got all these calves pinned, and we're getting ready to start working them. And one of the guys is like, well, what do you want to do now? And I said, well, I don't know. What do you want me to rope first? He said, you're the ranch boss. Yeah. You tell us what you want to do. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I am the ranch boss today.
That's right.
But that was a really good feeling, but also to recognize too that you gain your credit. Okay. In anything in life, you gain your credibility in that industry one step at a time. And just because you've been successful in one aspect of your life doesn't mean that same success is going to carry over. Normally it does, because the character traits that you developed, hopefully overlay into this other thing, but it might take you a while to get there. I can't tell you how many times I've shown dogs, and my dog looked like, it had never been trained.
Right.
And that's pretty humiliating, but it also makes me want to go back to the pen with some sheep and work some more dogs.
Yeah.
And so it's, you don't get to be the winner in everything you do in life unless you're willing to work hard enough to do it.
Yeah.
And
so every winner has been a loser.
Oh.
So it's just, get over it, folks. You got to be a loser first to get anything.
500 hitting as a batter is like amazing, right? Right? It's like amazing. But half the time they strike out, right?
They fail half the time.
So a lot of things in life are like that, though. But we live in a culture that's, one of my little soapboxes is we live in a culture now where everybody thinks that, everybody's going to be an influencer on some social media platform, and the reality is that most of that's just junk science, or it's not real. Mm-hmm. I'm more convinced by the guy that I meet at the local coffee shop having a cup of coffee that's been successful at what he's doing than I am by someone on Instagram or TikTok or.
I get the imposter syndrome, or maybe that's wrong. It's not really imposter syndrome, but sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Because it feels a little bit like the podcast, the clips we pull and post on social. It's this facade in some way of that's not any more valuable than the coffee shop conversation. But then I'm like, oh yeah, but I enjoy this. It's valuable. I'm talking to other smart people. That doesn't discredit the truth that this thing is still kind of messed up in certain ways, but still super valuable.
Well,
and good.
The other thing, you don't have to be perfect to be present.
Yeah.
I mean, being present, it's like parenting, right? You don't have to be perfect, but you need to be present.
Yeah.
As a parent, you got to be engaged when you're raising your kids. But the other thing is I used to tell people, I had a podcast. I think we had like 140 episodes in this podcast I did with a partner and friend of mine. And I used to say to him, no one's going to want to hear about that. He's like, the things that you have in your brain that you think are just common knowledge are not so common.
Yeah.
He said, so when you articulate and you say those things, you expose those things to people who you think it's just average knowledge. He said, it's average knowledge of a guy with 30 years of healthcare experience, right, or 30 years of fitness experience, or 30 years of this. He's like, so when I listen to a podcast like in the Western lifestyle industry or Western industries, agricultural, ranching, farming, whatever, they'll say things that to the average guy maybe that's been in the business for 30 years, it's like, of course. Mm-hmm. To me, I go, aha, right, that's why that's that.
Yeah, that's
and so my thing is if you enjoy what you do and you're able to promote an idea, relay an idea in a creative way, then it has value. Mm-hmm. And I think people value that. And they also value real.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
That I'm a real guy. You're a real guy. It amazed me how transparent you were about not knowing much about your commercial real estate investment. And that made me, now, if I was a mean-spirited bad guy, I could have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, that's right.
But that made me want to say, hey,
but then I would have learned, it could have happened that way.
That's right.
And then I'd have took my lick, and next time, boy, I'd know. But this time I kind of got to learn it for free, which was, yeah. I mean, I always think karma's a good thing.
Oh,
too.
for sure. But that's what I was going to say. But then that would come back to bite me later. And so I think that we do things because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. It's
that's a cowboy thing. Do the right thing
exactly.
when nobody's
Integrity.
watching or somebody's watching.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Do the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was fixing some fence on a ranch for a friend of mine in Mason County. I think a year or two ago, they had a bunch of fires down there, and so I went down to help my best friend. His mother-in-law owns a Angus ranch down there, and I was fixing fence, and there were some other people fixing fence, and they were kind of saying, "Well, it really doesn't matter how we do this." I said, "No, when that 80-some-odd-year-old rancher, when she drives in her buggy to drive this fence and she knows that I've worked on it, that Western Union splice is going to look good if it takes me 5 times to do it. Right. I'm going to do it right so that when she drives by, it's tight, it looks good, it looks clean, and she has a hard time finding the splice.
Yeah. Well, and you're proud of it.
Exactly.
And I know, even if she thinks it looks like crap, I did my best on that.
That's right.
That's
right.
I mean, that's so.
And it might have taken me 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't hire him for fence repair. It'd take him forever to fix that thing. But I think it's, there's a certain amount of pride and individual integrity when you do the right thing when no one else is around, and you inspect your own stuff.
Do you think that's maturity? Like, that's just what is that? Because I mean, Maybe I don't know. It's like a question that's worth asking. Where does that come from?
I think it's taught.
Because my kids, like they'll take the shortcut.
My stepdad raised me, and he was a machinist, and so he had a lot of tools. And when I would go borrow one of his tools out of his toolbox, if I didn't put it back in the exact spot that it was before, he would walk me out to the garage and he would say, "What's that?" I'd say, "Well, that's one of your tools." He said, "Why is it out on the bench and not in the toolbox?" Yeah. And I would say, "Oh, I just didn't put it back." He said, "You're not going to borrow my tools if you don't put it back." Yeah. And put it back in the right spot. And so it's taught. Yeah. And when we teach that, then that's the expectation level. And I would have to say, I operated a business in a community of 7 to 8 million people, the Dallas-Fort Worth community. Yeah. And I treated a lot of kids in that community. There's a lot of good kids in that community. But I tell you something that was refreshing. When we opened our practice in these small towns like we're in, like Comanche, Glen Rose, Stephenville, Mineral Wells, places like that. And we started treating those kids. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yeah. It's a different world. Yeah. And that's taught. I think people are taught there's an expectation. And what my dad used to do with me, and I used
respect. It's kind of like,
oh yeah,
come on, kid. It's the bully thing. Like, you join a branding crew, they're going to see if you got any sand. And that's one of the bully. That's the reason for it, and it's a good reason. Like, can Neil work under pressure, being made fun of? Is he tough enough? Yep. Because if you ain't, don't come back.
Well, and also earn your place in that crew. Earn your place in that crew. Show them that you want to learn from them. That the guys that start horses for me and that help me with my cattle and stuff, I learn from them. I'm not the expert there. So now, I will say this, because I have been around those guys and because I do listen and I do like to learn, I've learned a lot about how to handle a horse right, how to start a colt, how to do these things.
Dude, you've got some good horses. Dude, see? Yeah. I'm like, that's kind of a trigger word for me. Like, I don't mean to call you dude, but Darin, you've got some good horses.
We got some we're okay right now, but
why do you say that?
We have
because you haven't won the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we have a small group of brood mares that we like to breed. We breed to outside studs, we show in cow horse, and then if a prospect doesn't make it very well in cow horse, then we'll move him out of cow horse, and then I'll take him to a rope horse trainer, and we'll make a rope horse out of him. Like, I just sold a little bareback mare this last year, and I've got a mare right now that's up for sale. That's a 4-year-old that we showed at the snaffle bit, but again, a lot of that starts with genes. Yeah, it starts with good mares, gritty, good. And if you can get a money-earning mare, it's even better. Or if you raised a money-earning mare, and then breeding to good studs. And how many studs are out there? We had a metallic cat stud for a while, and he was a great horse, but he wasn't an exceptional horse. And finally, I had to admit to myself, okay, how many metallic cat studs are there? 1,000, so I said, all right, cut this sucker and he'll be worth more as a gelding. And that's what we did. And so, but I do it because I want good ranch horses. And I want good stock that we can work on, and then hopefully maybe produce something. Again, eventually it would be nice if my ranch were known for producing really good in a small scale performance horses and ranch horses. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be, anything less than good.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
better.
I mean, if you're gonna do
better.
it, somebody
Why not?
said, like one of the guys I interviewed recently was like, if there's no reason, or if I'm not trying to do it well, I don't know why I would do it. It's like, why would I do that? Why am I riding this bicycle if I'm just not going to, if I don't feel like there's a reason? I thought it was super insightful.
There will be a lot of things in your life, I think, that you're going to be average at. But for the things that you could be good and you just choose not to be, I can't operate that way. If I can be good doing something, I want to be good. Yeah. And if I can be better or excellent, I want to be excellent. And so, but I will say this, for the good cowboy that also knows how to train a horse, they're so much farther ahead than I was or am, because you know how it is. It's inputs and outputs. So, I mean, you probably know who Trip Townsend is. Yeah. Look at some of the horses that guy has produced, and he's produced those out of working off of them. Right. Now that is the best of both worlds, because he can make his own horses, and the horses he's produced are just way above the good mark. They're excellent, and so. And he's willing. He's also. I took a cow horse clinic a couple of years ago at the Stewart Ranch in Oklahoma, and he was there, and he was teaching roping in a pen, and I went in there, super helpful, amazing with the rope. You can rope anything at any time, any place, and just being able to learn from that caliber of person. I was just kind of like trying to soak it in. Trying to soak in and learn all those things, and so
it's like, isn't it fun when you look around and you realize you're the dumbest person there?
Oh, you're going to learn a lot.
You've got so much opportunity to get better.
Yes.
It's like, if you can't find some happiness in that, how are you going to ever get better? Because, like, it's kind of cool to be the best. Like, that is cool, too. Yeah. But if you got to be... I think Kobe Bryant was a lot that way. Like, he was just always looking for.
You're going to take some ribbing and some poking along the way. So you got to kind of get a little thick-skinned. Yeah. But when you get there, I think, and you at least earn a little respect from the people around you, that's a nice thing. That's a good feeling.
If you'll show you can take that, especially in what I feel like I know the best, cowboy culture.
Sure.
If you'll show that they can poke you and find the rawest spot on you and poke that, and you can handle it. Real quick, they quit poking, and now you're like, okay, cool, let's do this thing together.
Well, and if they poke me too much, if they ever have to come to one of my clinics, they might get a little back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. My gosh.
Because you're kind of in their world. So, but I tell people all the time, I wear a pair of jeans on one side and boots on one side and a white coat on the other, and living in both those worlds, I couldn't think of anything better. I love the fact that I get to go home to a ranch every night, and when I leave here, I'm going to go home and work some dogs in a pen.
It's like you bring good energy, and in life, isn't that the trick? Find a way to be the person. It doesn't have to be high energy. It's just good energy.
Sure.
Like, I'm never around you thinking, man, I wish I could get away from Darin because this is a downer. Right?
I talk a lot, but
well, you do talk a lot, which I enjoy. Yeah. Like, maybe somebody that could be annoying, because I'm sure people, like, not everybody loves me. Yeah. I guarantee you. Some of them are like, oh shit, here comes Neil. It's like, but then there's that other group who's like, yay, here comes Neil. So it's just find your people.
Yeah,
man, thanks for being on the podcast. I love talking to you. I love, like, being in your circle and having you as a resource. I appreciate you for that. Everybody out there watching, listening, check out Darin Deaton, DPT. See, I was about to say DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, DTP, and Darin Beef. What's the Deaton Ranch Beef?
DeatonRanchBeef.com, and then DPTTherapy.com. That's our PT clinic. And if you live this lifestyle, this cowboy or ranching, farming lifestyle, we know how to treat you. Our people in our clinics are mostly in all rural settings, and most of us do still live this life, and so we know how to treat you. We know that you're more than likely going to do something that we don't want you to do because it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And then, and so those are the
I got
two
a shout out to
businesses.
Trey and Grace. And
They're awesome
my
people.
kids have been through your clinic, and you just,
We're blessed.
you're helping us.
We're blessed. No one builds anything without good people.
Yeah.
We're blessed.
We'll see you next time, folks. Come listen. We'll take another, sitting in chairs, trotting around the pasture. Because I've done lots of conversations like this, trotting around the pasture with somebody, just checking fence line or something. So hope y'all keep joining us. Later.
We've come to the end of another conversation. Oh, by the way, thanks for listening. If you're hearing this, you spent a lot of time paying attention to me and my guests and being a part of the TCB Nation. If you loved it, tell somebody. If you didn't like it, tell me. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us on this Trot Around the Pasture.